Lola, the Tambo de Ne Susu Molums in the Tinishita, Ane Tichi Jai, Ane Tony Tower, which in Machipane, Chichi, Chipanyamba member, Kone Guna paper shows.
And so to begin today, first I greet you all, and I would like to begin with a short sort of a prayer that we can call here a simple prayer, which is may the supreme view of emptiness, which has not arisen, arise and grow, and may the which has arisen not decrease, but increase more and more.
Yeah. Tandati, the Chitoni Tower, which is a Tandati, Chick the chick Sosolean, Tiansin, Tangue, Chick Catui Dona, Chick Sosolea. That Tony Tavasi, Chitan Tavasi at the Eugene, Yurta Eugenia, Shetan, Yungretina, Camding as a two Echeng Tavalacona, Tindre Tawate, Echende, Tony Tobi Shirapti, Aura, the Matia Batia, that Machani, that she gets and you and I chick, there's coin, Yamsas in the rat in the young, in a young touch. Mandra, Koni Kondia, Petoya, Tindu to Andati, any Molam Chijagores.
And so this prayer, which is this aspiration to be able to develop the precious view of emptiness. So in relation to emptiness, it can be understood in relation to the subject and to the object. And here, particularly, I think this verse is focusing on the object in relation to our view. So this is talking about the wisdom which realizes emptiness. And so this view of realizing emptiness, where it has not arisen, may that arise, may that be developed in the mind, and if it has already arisen, may that continuously sort of grow and sort of gain more power in a sense.
Yeah. That ended Tombani Toby Shirabzeti. That chick didn't Sawachum with Seguia Karcheris, that you are Lisigro, the Karchin Sawachum Chagore. That chick Chana, the numbers of my boy, Nambi, that Rupsin and that seem going to be the Indishayam, the Katina, chick. Tombani Toby Shirabs at the Pikichum, but Tombani is an object pay Mambush Cotter. That the carrot it on the carriage and the carriage in the kitchen with chagris, it was launching less Lisigro. One day on the that tinta what the kitchen with the guay, the country is on the tongue of switch at summer with a G sim marombas in a sin you move with chop. Touching us any Tanto the Nani Choni, Chochik, the touching ditches and sim yai chop. Counter so which any send that on such mazin and chetang pooks at some malando and the ditches a chick. Tashamba shotting as women do a shot at a chick. Any do gang at the dinner chick mamboshing as around you chunde. That is what some get Sawaya Tuxona. Any Marik Basia Tikres at a nambita of shetanter. That in the Marik Basia Tikuna, Marik Basiate, condition also mebaso to condition. Tela Takure, Techi, Hotikableata, and Tombani can observe it in the shit. Leguet and encouraged in the curious.
And so in relation to the view of emptiness and this wisdom, which is realizing emptiness, you've probably heard numerous times emphasis put on this view and explanations on how precious it is, how important it is. And this is presented throughout all of Buddhist philosophy, this emphasis on the value and the importance of the realization of emptiness and the wisdom which realizes emptiness. And so why is this the case? Why are there so many divisions, and why is it so important for us to develop this view? It's important in relation to our disturbed mind, in relation to our mind which is contaminated by disturbing emotions. It is important in relation to our unruly mind, our uncontrolled mind. And so whatever it is which is contained within our mind, whether it's a positive or negative, when we're discussing about this life or future lives, anything which is happening as regards suffering, any sort of experience which is unpleasant, all of these are can be brought back, or we can identify the root of all of these experiences of suffering as being ignorance. And so the question is to how do we remove this ignorance? And this can be done so with this wisdom, which is realizing emptiness. It has this capacity to uproot this very source, this very root.
Yeah. 다 딘데 참마데 강을 참마 총사데 당보치 아니 마릭 바세야지 아니 다치 카운터 직 수드나 아니 다 마시 바시 가 마시 배운 그 총레세 츠코 데원르시나 딘디시카체시레 다 딘데 지 마시 바세야 대양 직다 남비타르 강네샤나 아니 로지레 원지 체고요 로는 게양 다치 senjung kirgla ngonzi che koyor senjung rila ngonzi chewe tinte marik pasinanda mishi pati ngonzi chewe ani kabli na yang chik tatu sinanda tinte timta susu yang ti ngonzi che tang matawa chik le yor ta counter le ti level tiso tsangma de counter karjana nga su ta tingna ani tinte mongba mishi pati aji meba so kudus ta ina mongba mishi pati ati 다 지금 디디스기를 샤세 양 데셰 잡당 기바 소선 데셰 잡당 좀다 소선 데셰 잡당 다 타마야 코 아니 지금 사브레 디 코랑을 잡당 가네요 데셰 칠레 오르면 더와시
And so in relation to all of the problems that we experience, they can all be sort of brought back to this initial ignorance. And ignorance, to kind of simplify a little bit this concept, it really is referring to not knowing. And it is a mental factor, and this mental factor is described throughout all different tenets, all different Buddhist philosophical schools in slightly different ways. And they're all referring to this sort of darkness, this obscuration, this idea of, this obscuring sort of quality, this not knowing. And that because they will have various explanation as to what this ignorance is, they will all also have different presentations as to how to undo it. And so the presentations and the explanations throughout the tenet systems will become more and more sort of deep and profound as to what this ignorance actually is referring to.
Marik Baziat, Koranlian, the Pai, Ivan Roche, Kablina, the Mashi Bachati, Mashi Bazia, Karmashi Resonde, Pagi nearly much sing, Pagi nearly Tazapshus in under the Mashi Chach in Kores. Motichi Teshe Kablea, that teaching and kneeling one in Teshe Javicala, kneeling one in Carres, that tended at Tombas at Inabjat Sheko. Tela momba siode tandanga su tende da toni to bishirab zede ti momba ti ani meva soyala tingi part kores te shetambo ti chigre ni ba de mashi ba chikane yung kores na su chu le junje ta chi yedi de chi chong yedi de chi tu jana jiba tele ya ta chi ani yange kar chong ma chung se tindi namsha la ya ani tata shik ma ko asinanda ti namsha la mon le junje la mon be marik pasi Mariba ni gane deshe te ta tumda tsama ge deshe jagres.
And so in relation to the different sort of explanations of ignorance, so the first sort of explanation which is put forth is in relation to, so like I said, this not knowing, yeah? And what are we not knowing? So the not knowing is occurring in relation to the profound sort of mode of existence or the true nature of reality in a sense. And this is what ignorance is. It's not knowing this nature of reality. And so when we're talking about the not knowing of the empty, the nature of reality, this means that we are blind, we are sort of in the dark in relation to the emptiness of the nature of reality, and we are blind in relation to the dependent arising, to the interdependent nature of reality. And so the second point also, which is asserted in relation to ignorance as to what it refers to, is in relation to cause and effect. And so this means that in relation to whatever good things or negative things which arise, ignorance is unaware of sort of this sort of a process of how good things and bad things sort of, or positive things and negative things sort of arise in our lives. And this is sort of asserted within all of the tenet systems.
No, that indeed, that's legendary, ne, that Nabjak, legendary among Basi, Kasishevna. Ta chi le ne jibu chongtang ge tin jin ba si shebi kable na ta pen na so chi pensun ro sha na nyomo ri de na nyomo ri de khane khane ni chung do nyomo koran che ser khande re sha si tin de ta che dang ni de she pe mang bo yor ti tin chu du du ni jing de ma chi ka shi na che su tan da nga so chi pe na da chi pensun ro nga so ta chi ni re chui na le ya chi 다지 안에 공도 시한정 알제 시한정다 카레나 즉 대좀 타나 인디언 즉 상마데 제의 컨디시 제거요 그래서인데 주 예들이 섬거 가는 데시 직다 남비 용방보시 나는 데시 아니 주스미요래서 즉 교스음데 단단히 강릉에 지장샤 요인데 마네 아니 단단히 로이는 조크나야 조 아니 다치 로보 인인 조 잔지 참마나 디니 가지 주스미요래서 다 가라데 타지 빵바 마임바세 다티 돈다 당보디 컨트레스인데 맞아 즉 그게 아니 사본도시 바창로 이나 가리나 그게 배나 맞아 즉그 순도데 자와네 메바조 마토나 아니 젠데스 팀데 남사야 아니 젠 그래서 중거라 타지 빵바 마인세인데 그게 사본도 자와원이 하데요 그래서 자와원이 하데요나 배나 지게네 도차이나다 콘트레이나다 아니 람사 젠 그래서 tombo sundo de zawande de pamba mayin ki kansa chikche ta dine niba khole chachi nyomo ki ala kargo yun ne nyawra ni pasion de yur ku chani yur de ne chik pena ne chik chaso gargina yur ka chik ata yete uma dan ziba de yana chirindang chimbo tindri le theon de lamsa ya parewa ani ngarja gargina phabsho yur de yang chik so maga sando namji chi dando ta de tuzon thong de lamsa ani yur de nyawra ne on de nyomo ki chigres ताते गंगलिया सुंबाद खारिजन सुशमा इबा यला चेबास ता पेना सोसोले थाजी पांबा सिनरा काउंटर बेगे सपोंडो होते अने चिते पांबा मायेबा छचिन चिकचे निबा दे युर्तले नेवरा नेबा ते गंगलिया सोसो ड्रोता खरेस ड्रोता ने तिनी न्योमंगरि तिया कॉम्पेटां रुग्रेस मता तोंदा रो तिंदिश गानी जोतां युर्तां जुरासे जोई टॉप समख गानी अने केग्रेस एट
And so in relation to being ignorant in relation to cause and effect, this is, for example, we can first contemplate this explanation in relation to the sequence and how cause and effect sort of unfold. And first of all, it's identifying, if we think about identifying the source or the origin of our disturbing emotions, where do they come from? And so there are lots of these sort of extensive explanations which describe this process, but here, just to give you like a brief idea of how this contemplation goes, is if we think about in our daily life the arising of anger, arrogance, and doubt, and all of these disturbing emotions, it is a very important question to sort of question as to how do they, or how they arise in the first place. And so what is explained in the Abhidhamma, which is this little extract here that I'm presenting from the root text, it identifies three main causes as to why these disturbing emotions arise on a daily basis. And so the first one is in relation to the subtle and the subtle and the powerful have not been abandoned. And so this is referring to, if you think of a seed, and if there's seeds which are still left in the ground, once the conditions are positive or sort of supportive, conducive, the seed will immediately sort of germinate, yeah? And this is referring to the germination here of disturbing emotions. So this means that because the seed of attachment, the seed of anger, arrogance, and so forth has not been initially abandoned at the root, yeah, at the very basis, as soon as conditions arise, then this will really be ignited and arise within the mind of the individual. The second one is in relation to the object, and so this will be because so it's being kind of close and in close contact to particular objects, and here objects are to be understood as beautiful, ugly, and so forth. And so when we're in relation or in close contact with these objects, they will basically trigger, in a sense, or encourage sort of the setting off of our attachment, if it's a beautiful one, or anger, or dislike, and so forth, of these different sort of disturbing emotions in our mind. And so these disturbing emotions arise when they become very close with these various types of objects. And the third one is an incapacity to think or to reflect sort of in an appropriate manner, yeah? And so what this actually means, it means because the abandonment of the seed, yeah, in a sense, the first one, and second of these objects, yeah, these being close to these sort of objects which set our disturbing emotions off, because of the presence of these first two, the third one will project. There will be an extra sort of layer of projection, which is coming from the conceptual mind onto these various situations, and therefore bring about the arising of disturbing emotions.
Tsama nyomori, tsama jetangde, tamalaya tuksona dagi gongli shwa nangshe, ane marikpali tuktuk reyese ate, tandanan gombolo tupka tsawa shirim nanglaya ta, lida nyomo namtangli te ta tuli tuba nese shik, ta tsama de, tuli tuba tsama de, tama de tongba nijinga kuk reyese, tonyu tobe shirab tanda ane, gongli masu ane shwa nangshe, tende tobe shirab tela tene ga kuk reyese, kachi chik chongyo shwa. Ta deyonde, dine ma, nyomo kandechi chegirese, rumbate kandechi tensha irese ta, ane pechi ngaso chik dinga naso chongsha nyomo rikde, dinga naso to nyomo li chonga chikche dinga kirikde, dinga naso to jembate, dinga naso pate nyomo li che, nyomo de kawani chongorese, nyomo nanje ta ngaso yudu uonwa ta, yudu uonwa uonga tindi taki kongli shiwa na shengu tsulme yiche ka namtose, soso ngoli ya, jota mambo shik chong, tele tene chong, 다 된대에 아니 출시 많이 봐. 무연에서 다다 많이 배. 남도 그렇게 참아대 탈아야 두성나 대다 담지 취지 늘리라 몽배세시. 그게 늘리지만 그게 뭐에 그네 세트 많통네. 아니 다시 말이 봐. 뒤에 다시 두바 몽보실래. 텔레 콤바체 돈도다나 참아 말이 봐를 되는 중거래세. 돈다 직 타투나 된지시래.
And to continue on this stream of thought in relation to the arising and the source of disturbing emotions. So bearing in mind that the source of all disturbing emotions is ignorance, there is this verse of composed by Nagarjuna in the verses on fundamental wisdom. And so it says that karma and disturbing emotions arise from these sort of discursive thoughts. Yeah, these are conceptual elaborations. They can also be thought of understood as a kind of inner sort of monologue in a sense. And this inner monologue, this kind of inner monologue which occurs in our mind kind of adds an extra layer on top of the external situation in that sense. And this is saying, so all the different types of suffering which are being brought, Dungen natso pa dembe chisam dungel korandigi tele tene le tende sagiore tere yang le ne ani dungen natso pa tende kiele
le dinga natso pa tengeora le la tene dinga natso pa chungya
less
dinga natso pa le che le te nyu le te tsumen che nam to le che tsumen che nam so te mariba ya
And so this verse, to kind of go into it in a bit more depth, so all the various types of suffering that we experience, they're arising from karma. And karma itself is arising because of disturbing emotions. And disturbing emotions themselves are, they themselves also sort of arise in relation to beautiful objects and displeasing objects. And it's especially this projection which is occurring in relation to reality, this projection coming from the mind, which is adding an extra layer on top of what is there. And so this is describing this aspect of the conceptual thoughts which are not in accord with reality, which is bringing about more disturbing emotions. And then the last one, sulmin yichi ki namtok teda ni chönam ki nelukula mongpe. Okay. And so these conceptual thoughts, which are not in accord with reality, what does this actually mean? It's referring to the incapacity. This is this ignorance, which is incapable of seeing phenomena as for what they actually are. It's unable to see phenomena in their true mode of existence.
So that three was the ma and it's two the shake the gangly and the Nyomongri, not so much one bushing a switching like Chungori Chongli Changdang, the Tindy Gangli Shuanashing, that Tinanging a switch Nyomondo in the death center, Mombosh Chegore. They sang that two chick, Savin Nyomont Matrixia, she Nevin, you must say Nyomonted and Jayok Nyomon, that you should see Shigre. Tadina Gatanda Senyu took Nangasu, Ane Sumba, Najelse, Ticorte, and they took count to the cinema, what in this year.
And so today we're going to continue in relation to these mental factors, and we have again we're going into these 6 root afflictions, and so these are presentations of the various divisions of disturbing emotions. And so here there are sort of various presentations as regards the amounts and the different sort of types which have been divided throughout different literature, but here we're focusing on the 6, and we have arrived at the 3rd, which is arrogance.
Oh, Tandini Kabli, Taki Gong Shivan on Jeton, Ching Gender Chixi. Tangasu Suinala Mambushi with Chonte Yore, Sasosali Yamyon, Tajasha Yamachuala, Taj Najak condition Yamyon, you and Chagora. Tinichi came with Kabli, Nakataki Gong Shivan, I think. Oh, Tangajasi at the Chungate, only a Jutem and that Suchi Najak Mambuchi Najak Chonate, and Sunmi Chicken and Tosi at Tionga. Tiang Yaya Tudana, Marik Pasi Tudueva, teaching Samlo Tanko. Tene, the Ding are Jerry, the Chongi Kablia, Susugata, or Tinyam data, Susogina chick. The Lee Sagayoba, Tindiga Samlos, Chojamba chick. The Lee Sana, Liti Carreson, Liti in Jibian, Susole, T. Julia, Jibundo Carchonsare, the Dinger, the Karina, Kanga Grimombo Chonguresiande, what Tindiga, Jigichola Yata, and Jibichola Mataya. What Tindi Gani Savnotana, Tapchodo, Susuvia, Nadia Choli, and she told her count to Tushik. Or the Nichon Yalapendo is a returns.
And so here, as we explore in arrogance, it's something which I think that we're all very familiar with. We all have probably safe to say 100%, all of us have some sort of experience and are quite familiar with this state of mind of arrogance. And so I think a way which is quite useful to kind of connect it with what I was just explaining here is to think about sort of the cause of questioning about the cause of arrogance. And we can think about how arrogance arises in relation or in dependence upon these conceptual thoughts which are not in accord with reality, how they arise out of this projection that we're making on the external sort of situation. We can also think about when we are sort of under the power of arrogance, this brings us to accumulate specific karma. So this leads us basically to act in a particular manner. And we can also question about the results, what results are brought about when we are acting under the control of arrogance. And we can quite easily identify the experience of suffering which will result from such actions. And so I think it's quite useful to give us that, to think about arrogance within this framework of thinking about the cause, why it's coming about, and again, and then how what it will bring about in the future, in the sense of the result.
Yeah. And the decollement, the Shishu Kablina, that Tambong, Marjas at Carres, Shimgrot, Korang Odo, Koran Carres yet. Tandinal Mango, the condition of the chase already. Korangi Gelatin, Gu, and the chick penaning, Chinamjing Solia, chick Najashi Kave Kablia, and a chick Muyendo, she Karala Macris, Shimgroa. 다 소소 강사라니 그 다치 윤노람 세운데 소소래 나자께 되나 주 소소 반저당 딘디그지 딘디그에 주 직당도잖아 다 직당 쉬워 직당 인거야 돼 요마로 다 강도 소소래 비 윤노르 그렇지 되네 다치 대 윤노 그러기zon데 다나마서 주 반저 그런도 양나 때 소소가 다 직타나 안에 소소래 요비 잘라른단 신부 딘디 지금 Tatesan Longorse and Oda Takarina Tindi Mamboshora, Tindi Obala Tennis was a Jetia. Tene Yona, Susu Yonde so says to Yonde on the Dayan Shicha Yoden test me so and Shicha Yoter na sopashi Jango so dom nashing. Tadi Yoden Desia, Susu Gelation, Tatela Minitanga Chick and a Susanga Jetia Junjoya. Te kandeso tindi churi la mungne sia shito tindi rikshi la mungne sem nale ya sem ta kandeshi ke gore se onde king bi namba cheso king ba se onde pe ya kang de anshi bedega ma so so lo koron ani ta chi karzora masala pa ma to ni katina ani thosa chi la pa ta de anu se na ta chi kargang ni na so so le nga yo sang cha kyo kare na chi 아니 소소 베드가 아니 지 샴발이 차트 박반듯이 나와듯이 레네 디가니 다 딘디게 톤도 그따위 남바 딘디게 센종지
So arrogance is a mental factor, and we can identify it once again in relation to its nature and to its kind of its quality in the sense. And so a first point to reflect upon is the object. What does arrogance take as its object? What object does it observe? And so it's in relation generally to some type of wealth. So it can be something of value, but it can also be something of not great value. It's mainly something that one possesses, some kind of thing that one has. So it could be a car. It could also be in relation to quality. So, for example, through study, maybe one has developed has acquired particular qualities, and therefore this becomes the cause to generate arrogance. And so there's this other dimension with arrogance, which is, so not only is these particular objects which are being observed as some type of wealth or also quality, but also the mind becomes you become full of yourself. You become really, in Tibetan is really this idea of kind of fullness. So this idea, we also say in English, to be full of oneself. And so that such a mind is unable to take the lower ground. It always places themselves on a higher ground. And our body, speech, and mind, again, in comparison to others, are always placed as kind of extraordinarily better. We think that there is a kind of an extra sort of good dimension to oneself.
That want the ane, then anechi, it's a condition or is it Rani Tunjo, the Ganisho and Ashere, top than Jorbasion, touching Jorbasin, Panjogri Tinji, the counter, ane chick Tinji, ane top down, ane Panjor, the Yana Rik, Penadachi did it as some chicken to me, no, the Mama that Tilishimo Tesant in the container, Tesant is Yoran. And me Korik Maboche and Yuri Yange, Riyad. Tindi Korange Gani, that is so she was in Nando, Taya. Cantangwe Nezala Pagele, that Chapar Mena Yanta, me Pazone, Rixia de Injechi, Rikan Coronita, Tindi, Rigi, Yote, Tatanas and Dinona Penson, Carson, Pena Kashi, Kenyan Bondo, Kensam Pe, Gitano, Tende, Tindiona. That's also Leon T. Yodenchi, Yoyotina, Yotentella Mini Young, I just Shimbolaya. So tea and I just then I you touch you pema. There's on she sangat in the she bagay touch passing sangas hand over the counter. The counter tended the in Gogumar, the counter, neighbor tended the Gogumar, the in that pen, so like you didn't know. Chechu Mundawashi, Yobate, Tati Jinsen the Sony, Shambat Sama marching Tonchon was in the counter, Shambat Sama Name Diana, so the pedigani, touching. Yakshurs and Jakshurs and same non colonia to another sound. What that indigene, that can't get on the Nishin on the Kiwi research, not yet Chonton condition resumed. Pencil or it is Kashish.
And in relation to the second point here, which is in how arrogance is generated within one's mind, how does it arise? So it will be basically in relation to kind of some kind of strength or some kind of wealth, or here there's also, it says a class, and this is more, I'm not sure if this is really so appropriate based in our contemporary scenario, but it's in relation to maybe the caste system. There's this division which has been made, for example, and there is this consideration that some people are higher caste and people are of lower caste. So these type of differences and divisions which have been created, and one might have also some type of qualities, for example, be very good at singing, for example, have a beautiful voice, or maybe somebody is very strong and powerful and some kind of boxer. I mean, you don't need to be some sort of extraordinary, you don't have to have an extraordinary quality, but here's just to give you an idea that these are kind of observing these objects will then bring about this kind of mind which will become very full of themselves and have this look at others in a kind of demeaning way. You kind of disregard other people, you look down upon them. And so this is how arrogance is generated within the mind.
The order Pechi Garishan, Penarin Tombo Zeni, Tanasian. Penarin Tombo Shigali and Johnny, any Chita Kavle, Tachi, such a Shamba, Ri Shamba, Sama, that Tombo de Latine, Sama Maurshi, Tongurwa. Pedendo was she, Tachi Ranye, Ben Choten Sinchings, Ranye by Yashut, Twitch, Tambos in a state or the Ranusong, Parobo, the Parobo Chick, Pasho, which Tangazung Ajeri, Jessa Sama Mancha, Tandachi. So than Ranyam good, Tanjo Meta, Tindig Langaje, Chunguyo Madayanchik, Shambashi, Yam the Durgo Mara, Dursa de Antonio, to the Sama de Ranyale Mawant, Chikaragani, Nachi, any Masasu, Ranye the Petaka, Pekajit, Rintobogani Matai, Rishambatsu, Mawantuana, Tindig to the Penson some river. What Tindig and Tondok and Nambachi Shichumushile. Tachimule on the Tini, so Chachula Pani, Chavata, Tachi, Lekala, Kablina, Tashambala, Ranshinkan, Tonjonda, Jesota, and the Shambala Namjil, Dana, Karsura, and Maga, any chair, Jim Ambushi to there. What the name is, eh?
Gondakiran Tamatila Yanga Surana?
Penna, that Tindi, Susanga Jeshi Chimboyana, that's also any Chavari, Tachi Lecanto, Kari, Leka, Lepa, Shuguyana. And Jim Mishambala, Ranshingo, Chesundo, Tonjondo, and a Mishamba Sama, Chikar, Tachi, Susu, Ropa in a Karina, Namendro Shondoya. Karzena Ranima, the Shamba, Chipasho, Nesentos, and Shambala, Rintang, to go over and Danchi Susurits. Shamba and Mandoni, Shamba Namesho, what in it all, Connie.
No, less. And to give you an example, or kind of an image to illustrate this process or this state of mind of arrogance, you can think about it if you climb a mountain and if you arrive at the top of the mountain and you're kind of gazing down and all of the other mountains surrounding you are lower, on a lower ground. And so there's this kind of this state of mind, this mental factor of arrogance is this idea of one is being superior, one is better, one is like on the top of this peak and gazing down at everything else in that sense. And so generally arrogance, so there's this comparison which is done between self and other, we're generally comparing ourselves to other human beings, and it will be considering, therefore, all other human beings as being lower, as being inferior to us. And so this is a very sort of strong, powerful mind. And as this powerful mind sort of fills out, kind of takes over our mind in a sense, this will mean that whatever activity that we do will be imbued with this attitude of looking down upon people, even ignoring our close ones, ignoring our friends. And because there's this heavy focus on this I in this sense, and there is a complete sort of unawareness of the value of other in that sense that is completely sort of becomes oblivious to such a state of mind.
Ani tate chik ani ngaje se ani tate gali gangle shu sare tanda ti kunti nalama ngaje ani ngozong ikable ya ani ngaje de zuwe chik ketang gangle ya tage ani nyomong ru ketang si shevro ti nange ya ta chik ani jikta se shi namji ta ngazo ani so jikson la tawa se tele yang ru ni chi nga chik nga de yakshe ta nganzen se chi ta ngayo anzen ba se shi ni chi ka shi go ani nga la muni ta chi so ani chi rang jia wan zhen ba ande na xin ge ni se ani tin de la muni yang chi ani rang wan zhen ba tin de ge ani jikson la tawa se tin de ge ani ta tang di ge shi chi mo le on de ti chang be ta na nga je le gre se ro ton da de ta nga je chang tang de kan de 난 딘디 중거레스 당가제 체베 갑래 가제 좀이 갑래 코 카리언 손데 아니 샴바 수강리 기바메지 마기바 아니 지 기접 자이네 면조 다치 거기 뮤직 트고나 기접 전에 체마 다치 소소이 단 토나도 세나라 딘디 왕크 뭐 딘디 중거레 텔라 테네 데니 다치 디베나 딩마 중거레세 단단디 곰바 금디게 나와야 가제 원상 땅데 딘디 중고사 샤도
And so in the Abhidhamma, what is explained in relation to the generating these different disturbing emotions, and particularly the arrogance, it is actually presented also in relation to the view, what is called the view of the transitory, or view of transitory collection. So, and this view of the transitory collection can be divided into two. And so the first one is this belief in this independent, sort of self-sufficient I. And then the second aspect of this view of the transitory collection is associated with this belief in this my. So first there's this belief in an I, and then there's this extension of my mind, this sort of dimension, which is generated. And so because of this view of the transitory collection, this creates sort of a fertile ground for arrogance to arise, and it brings about actually a level of arrogance. And when arrogance takes over our mind, this results in a lack of respect, it results in a lack of care and attention for others, and it's based upon this view, which will then bring about all these diverse experiences of suffering. Gen latin ang Lola michi tiwa tandoa. Tanda tanshana yana jila kandischiga. I see somebody sent a question in the chat, but it seems to have disappeared. I'm not sure what's happened. Can you ask your question if you have it? Ale? Okay. Ale, okay, never mind. So if you have a question, yes, consider, is superiority considered arrogance? Susu tigi mishembale yaga yimba yena aniti ngagirve.
Yaga yimba yena semorata yimba tana la tak so samlo no te korna la gore.
Samlo korna. Samlo korna.
Ta samlo ko samla ngaje yimbe ngaje samlo ko samgada ngaje ran chagmarwa. Samle ta samlo ko tang de ta chedang diwo de ngaje de ngajur chedang ngajur ani gusha ya tang ngajur dun sha ya ngaje chedang bo shore ta ngi diwo de ma dun de sun de sheyo bute de she musi mo ba che shayo ta de dun de yongore te kawle de cha secret ina ta zo kan de go gre sion de su ne ranye kare ranye te shambale ya ta sion de ta tang de korangi ne tawe kawle durgura dartang de kandiji durgu yinse ate tere duraya pechek penna ta chiyong go chani mi shamba chigle chona yawa yo segre te tsamina ko ti tingi ge chabar tsam tawayina da dukore ko chabar yo mare ko rana dukurwa ina ya ti shiyong di ne chik nga tile shiyong da yawa yo se atsam do dukure ina sem ge ding de ya nga ti shiyong nga kongle nga ya yo sam ge so ge ti ene samlo bug de ya yang chik karzaro ta che shambale ene cheso se na thongchong ge number do sem ji le chana ta nga jere kantar ko dure kable na dartang shingura shamba de rani ni su ya ma ya se dure te pene yoden ro chik ga ne dure yo na yoden chapra yobat sam terna dikore te samla chabai ngaje chungo mare ta durga tela tene ta chi karamna chi ranye te chi sem gading ne ya ane o ta chi nga ya do sam go ya chi ko ti chi thondo gen thoa ta namba le sana ngaje re sigre
lasso. So in relation to this, actually, further on in this sort of lecture, I'm going to explore, there's actually numerous divisions of arrogance. There's some which are divided in 9, some which are divided in 6. So I'm not going to kind of go into this because we're going to explore it together just in a moment. But it's not because one thinks that one is better or superior that it's necessarily arrogance. Yeah. So thinking that something is superior over something else is not necessarily arrogance. It really has to do with the way that you're seeing it or the way that you're thinking about it. So, for example, if one compares two things and thinks, okay, this is superior, this is better in a sense, if that is based on, maybe it's true, maybe, you have more knowledge about something than somebody else. So that distinction, that comparison is accurate. But so just simply considering and making a distinction between two elements or two people doesn't actually mean that there's necessarily arrogance. It really has to do that after there's that comparison which is done, if in the depth of your mind there is this aspect of this kind of looking down, now that you've identified this difference and maybe, this is, this superior aspect or this better aspect, then there's a looking down on the other. So it's not because there is this distinction and identification of qualities which necessarily brings about arrogance. It's really based upon this extra dimension in the mind of looking down and thinking that one is, of looking down upon the other.
아니 다치 샴발에 소소 야가세 둘이 qab래 양아서 만치야시 다치 여된로 있는 야나 반전로 있는 야나치 소소가 치 톱당 거사 근데 제답아 치가 간에 들고 요래 배나치 여된 간에 여된 치 여된을 빼 망보 옆에 있는 거 여된 참아 들도고 말아 여된 그 가시 소소를 요아도 샴발에 들도고 봐 대나시 반저게 차니래 다때 나신 게 다치 빼나 지보세나 다 틴디가 톱다 양나 틴디가 요된 게 소소게 체슈 간에 들이야 틴디 주더니 라니 야가 따가 요래 되나요 초치는 아주 사블로 카르탄 고기도 센더와 아니 초 mambo 찍니 찍잖아 샴바테 쿄레 야가 요시 그랬어 슝거와 단다 초 찍니 베나 데센로 찍니 아니 저런 샴바텔레 때니 라니 야가 요비 온다 땅네 양 체추 있잖니 저 샴바 양 찍절 썰요라 썰 드라마를 썰세한도 소소 짓설세한도 mambo지 대원디 미 소소레 체추 투모만 비 여된 그 mambo지 온데 맞도 삼바 들토고 말아 들마통데 다 소소 드려야데 네치들 디가닝 아저지 제그레 되나 초 샴바 중에 때 쿄레 샴바데 담로 다 딘디가 촐레 샴바데 담로 그 야그레 야가 용시그레 딘디가 따땅데 양 sablo 코르토나 맞아 랑싱게 당가 직 샴바들이 시우지 따직 톤도제나라 차바와지 따야만도 와서 생그랑싱게 직레 앵그로
And so another way that we can think about this is this process of arrogance. So like I mentioned, it comes about through this process of comparison, yeah? So comparing one's wealth, comparing one's position of power, maybe comparing one's qualities and so forth. But there's really a focus generally on one particular thing. Maybe it's, one sort of, material thing or one quality or there's just this arrogance is really generally based upon one sort of it focuses on one object in that sense. And so it's important, I think, at that point to reflect upon that relative notion. Like if we think that something is really great, we have this projection on this object that is really wonderful, to sort of try and sort of gain a perspective by considering it in relation to many different points of view, many different perspectives. So it might be that one is skilled in one thing or possesses something which is good in one dimension, but actually there are so many different types of skills. Maybe if we think of the arts and these different type of skills that people can develop, there's so many numerous skills. And so it's really important to not look at the whole situation in a one-dimension manner. You need to think about it in okay, maybe I'm good at this, or I have this which is good, but there's so many other sort of domains which exist, which I lack in a sense. And so if you're able to perceive sort of the situation in a much more holistic way, and think about it in a much more sort of in a grander picture with different perspective, this will avoid this sort of this looking down upon others, thinking this sense of superiority and kind of looking down and disregarding others in that sense.
Yeah, pena ta tendro chiong tenga chu chik dure kablina ta chong mombochi ni duriya ha yo ati ni parte chik ngaso samlang kortona tes pendo yo sare pena je panjor chipo gantena chichena panjor gane pa chik panjo chimbo chik da sodang mage ene chi pango si sora changbo si ni durkandona panjo ga ne tang chani pe chik da te ta ko ya yimba de ngui ni sere te ko ina chichena semnala de chik gane durkandona chichena pango de chiche yo sigro 곧 그냥 야샤자 탐바 치다도 야레세 사코로미도 고요 치즈는 세면은 그 대체가 강의 주들간도나 방고도 대치체 요스그래 대원이다 그래서 아주 치 야샤자 탐바 나 야가시긴 바다 샴바도 좋아하시긴 바 야나 샴바도 야샤자 탐바 야가인 바 나데 야샤자 탐바 같이는 내단 좋아하시긴 베세야데 사와니 또 용어매게 용어매번 차도도 어디에 버렸다고
And I think it's very important to think when we're going through this process of comparison to gain these different perspectives on the situation. Because if we think from the perspective of wealth, we can think like if there's a beggar and we can compare ourselves with the beggar, there will be like this, we are definitely better off than the beggar in that sense. We have much more wealth, but on another perspective, you can think about it. Maybe although the beggar has pretty much nothing, they are maybe a much happier person than we are. So it's not because, we have something or that we are better in one dimension, that we are better in 100% in all of those dimensions. There is no such thing as 100% good. So I think this is why it's very enriching to contemplate the situations from different perspectives, and we're not able to say that I'm 100% better and, they are 100%, not as good or poor in that sense, because there's many, many ways you can look at the situations and many points of comparison.
So, ane tati ta ngaje se ta ngaje ti chele de she ja ka le ya ta chele de le ya chi khande yong ga ngaje shi chumle na chi shamba le ya ane kuje menjo mi ta tang korong ka ni chi mi chi kin thong ne chi ne mi te ta chi kije menjo ta chi cholam go chani kar ga ni na ta chi ma ki pa mi chi thong ya tene khansa rani ki chele na su su go yo de ta chi shi na shi yong kong ni kong ba che wa le ya ngaje ga ke che gre se tin di ka chare ta dine dingal chung gre se dingal chung se nyoma chama ge dingal chung ate thomong ge ta chi di ba de cha gro wa mo tin di ka che she wor ta de kab le ya ngaje ne chi ta de ngol le ya din di to ane kadam ki shi so song na le ya ngaje ji kum le yo ten ji ane shum cha se shi pe da me chi le ya ane ngaje ge pe na chi 공부도 도도도 지레 되나 티강리야 아니 여den기 추대 니 추니 대토 말해서 한듯이 어때 가르라고 그래 돈도한테 가르라고 그래서 빼나지 미징아 제식 친구다 딘디 소소데 인나로 슈자된 게시나 뭐니치네 여den세야데 직전나 다치 여den 친구다 밥쇼 딘디 산이 양아 요새 그래다 여den세야데 직전에 소소리 지 반조가 전이 가르강이 있네 마오 미치 끼마직 산이야 여대 망보시 양아 요대로 이나 수성 알제식 친구시니 다 뒤수 산이 여대 양아세야 고소까지 시에서 다 뒤수다 니에 걸어마지야 수소 직 진지 남면도 쇼들 통정도 지용데 아다 수소 여대 망보시 내야 매와 다 직티 버리리야 아니 마구바 가서 구점 되면 온데 파쇼 떠나 거를 제고 말 진리 전에 여대 망보시 지야라 개체 그래서
Nato kushap machi pa yinsa ni mitela susu tiki pa chik labia tiki chik parche chik yore tire.
Ya basho mitalia kushap zeran kushap che ate karazan basho te rendan si urwa.
La
Basho miti ani kare yoden kare yome da tono koro chik marta tono koro.
And so in relation to how arrogance plays out, we can think about it as it manifests in a form of lack of respect. And so there's this lack of respect. And there's also that all qualities which have been developed up until now within that individual, the arrogant person is no longer able to sort of continuous flourishing of those qualities or development of those qualities. Arrogance is like an obstacle for the development of qualities. And so also in the text here in the Abhidhamma, it mentions that it's the basis for the arising of suffering. And this is common. This is a common aspect throughout all of disturbing emotions that they bring about suffering. And so there's this quote, which I think is very nice from the Kadampa Geshes, which say that, within the ball, or you can think of the pod, or this kind of locked in sort of entity, or this piece, something which is completely sealed up. The water of qualities cannot enter, it cannot sort of seep in. And so you can think about this in what does this actually mean? It's referring to this idea that if one is sort of completely locked up with arrogance, then there is no way that that individual will be able to open themselves up to further learning. And especially if they're considering others as being lower than them, then there is no way that they will let any information sort of enter into their mind, because they've put themselves on another plane in that sense. And so the idea, respect is coming about through this appreciation of the quality of the other. But here, a person who is arrogant has no respect, has zero respect, because there is a complete lack of appreciation of the quality which is in front of them. And so therefore, because there's no appreciation, there's no way for any of that quality, as it's not perceived, for it to enter into their own sort of mind, for them to develop in that sense.
Ani tanga zu dinama nga jek inni namrang do kandi chungore si kono yuji gwangni ani chik yewan do ma dun che ngure dun de chima de shye.
And so now, in relation to the divisions of arrogance, there are, sorry, earlier on I made a mistake, I said there were 6, but here I see that there are 7, so there are 7 divisions of the different arrogances, which we're going to go through now.
Tate tangbo dele ani nga jersey korong mi de ta sha yor yor de na ta ti in bege Geshe tundang ro tang na de siang ko yu cheta ba chigli ya yu khande se un de pe na ni chik ani da ge gaun lu tuwa shiwa na jere mi ju so so durga yore so so dure kable na so so mamba ta chik yoden ge cheni mamba yana chik panjo ge cheni mamba tinde chi la ani ne tang chi la mugni chetaba chila tani tani soso de pe shu tele da cheta babar ani rani pe chinga na jinga ta chota kerba mendu sa sam sim ta tang shamba chile ya ani dursa de mege ne yoden ro chetaba chig gangli shamba memba chila tene koron thoya yore dursa de tere de tela duri kala samlo na ne ta nga na jinga ani pita po nga na jinga chota kerba chi ta mendu sa sam sim gangle ya sim ki chile sabor samlo na tin jengre se
Ci san dursetela ngagel tambutela dursetela chik kare michu yimba ina kirante nesu sa michu yim tim suma sa
de mare pen mi chigle duri kabre na ta ko chena korange ne yoden ge chani pen chik shion de na pen ansin ro chik gande duri yo segre yana panja dur chogre kare na dure kabla ani tele korang yawa cha dewa yana ya cha dewa tsamba yinba korang karsan ta nga nanshin ge yakshu da chuni yogi mara samsam sim korang nangla ya dini shi.
Lasso, okay. And so the first one is actually simply, the first one in the division is simply called arrogance. And so arrogance here is in relation to a specific object, and it comes about through this process of comparison, comparing, for example, qualities. It can be comparing wealth. It could be, for example, being skilled in mathematics, or any type of sort of quality that one has. And so in relation to another, one thinks that one is 100% much better than the other person, and that there is nobody else which is better than me, at whatever quality or material good that one is sort of fixating on. So this is the first type of arrogance.
Yeah. Ane niba te tana happy nga jerse pena ta chik soso da ane mone chana yoden ge chani nyamba ina yang soso roba de tan suni yoden ge chani dawo cha de na yang soso samlo na nga yaksho yin samlo de le ane nyamba le jang rani chot de jerba yin pa sho yirg ga ne kuni nyamba cha de shiung ge chani nyamba ina yana panjo ge chani nyamba ina panjur chikchana chikba insegre de korang sabna nga khongida nga panjur ya ayo sam tindi yang ani ngarje chikegres tini badare.
And so the second one, which is called, let me get you the exact word. So it's exalted pride, or it can be called exceeding pride. Yeah, the second one is called exceeding pride. And so this is, so you're comparing yourself with somebody who is actually on the same level as you, but you are thinking that you are better than them. You are thinking whether you have the same amount of wealth or you have the same level of qualities, in a sense, you still have this belief that you are better than them, when actually you are, you're on an equal ground, in a sense.
Ene sumba de ngarjali jang ngarjal seonte ta tonda de tereta rangle la basi mone chena shiung chane rangle la basi pasho de yin rani tele kyo chi yona ya kyo de rani kyo yin ba man thong ni ta khole jang ya sam sam yong sigres yang sam sam le nga so sam lo na ne gang tambo de soso le shiung ro pe chi jana mamba de che ni ba de rani da pension re jana nyamba che ta de sambe ne ko le ka la shiung ge chani koran thoya yana pa sho shiung ro pe chi jana sin da pe chi shiung gang la pe jana ko shiung le rani le pa sho de shiung ya yo na rani ge samlo na na ko le da nga ya yo sam sam ko te la te ni nga je che ni mo de ni yong se gres.
And so the third one is called Pride Beyond Pride. And so this is in relation to basically there's somebody which you will be comparing yourself with who has actually superior qualities to you, has better qualities, maybe more wealth or whatnot. But although there's this reality of them having, of them being in a sense on a higher ground to you, you still consider yourself as being better than them. So if you think of the first, second, and third arrogances or types of arrogances we've been so far, the first one is you're thinking that you're better than somebody and they have actually like inferior qualities to you. The second is when somebody has an equal amount of qualities and you think that you're better than them. And the third one is actually somebody who has superior qualities to you and you still think that you are better than them.
Yuni shubadare, ta shubade, ane, ta sosolam, taki gangdo tsama mi shambala durgu yore, ta tante shibane le yonde soso ge yode, pena soso ta chik, yana ane chik karzo, ta ganglo shuwa nashi, taki ane chik chena korang zik sambo yo segre, chik chena kenga nyembo yo segre, yana kol top chumbo yo segre, kanta tinde la mune, ta nga nashin ta chuni, ta zambu le gangla, ta nga yaksho yinsare, nga chik siya yungura pe soso pe tka shik chumbu shivu jile ne. Ngone chena shamba Korang dan traba pe trangalindi pa yo sigare, yo chogre kole ya senanta, yana kole topcha, kole panjuri ya, yana soso ke kole nyemba. Ina yana ta soso de, ane yakshur dan tonga ya shingura, nga o nyembe ngarjir siya tiri.
Ali ngau nyambi ngakir.
Pombo la mwini siya, pombo siya ta chu soso ga zigzo ta tindi la mwik chogre, rangi ka ke, yana ta chik soso la yobe, ane ponso ji yoden to so la mwini.
So this next one, let me just try and get the exact terminology. Nyambe. Okay, so it's called this egotistical pride, yeah, and so it really comes from one having some type of maybe physical strength or maybe having some particular skill in singing or any type of quality or wealth, and you really think that you are the best in the world. You know, you think that you are one of a kind in this world, and this is what is identified as being this egotistical pride, or it's also translated as the pride of thinking I.
Yeah, ane ngaba de ngobi nganje se tere tanga so chik ngone ta so so ge chi ne ta nyamleng ge chani se na de nyamle chen ge china chik tin de nyamleng ge so so le ya chi nyamleng ge tok ban ro tin de ma le na ya ane chi ma tho na tho ya sam sam ge so so le nga ja choi shiong ge ne sen de china shiong ge ne se ta ta le ta de le me na ya nga ti ne se chi le yo sam sam ge so so le nga ja chen Peki neram rishi masona kawa level rishi kawa le yomi hama ko ashito modinde wange yang ngajir mabu shukurte ngombi ngajir sedre ngomba de yoba rishi yoba mena yo samlo shi legro modere ngomba se
Lasso. And so then the next one is in relation to the pride of conceit. Yeah. And so this is particularly in relation to one's practice. And so one thinking that one has developed some type of realization when in reality there is not. So there's this idea that one is maybe even in one's studies that one is very advanced, but actually in reality one is not. And so because of thinking advanced, you have this sort of sense of arrogance. So this arrogance is really this inability of really knowing where you're at and thinking that something exists, that some quality exists, when in reality it does not.
ane tanda chukba dere ta chukba dene kabla khare yore semde ta ko yang te changbo no thembyo sen ta kanda kande yore sen te so le ta chik yode ane rang le chin chok de gerba la mune ta so le yode ngi chane pe de ke ta chik ya ko shu yong ge shile mung ne ta nga tele chang te zi yo de tele te zi kyo yo la shi re ta sam lo na le ya ko le te zi nga kyo yo re se yong de ton da ka na rani bug le ya rani shu yo wa ka chi ta dursa de pe yo den chimbu se na da ga dursa de pe chimbu ji le ya dur yo re tele te zi kyo ta chi pe ge koron de ta second level re koron le yo wa chi sam lo na la te le wo se wo ta te ton da de te tele nga te kyo yo la de ton da soso ya ta shiwo shik yo ya rin kura wa tene ni chen ya nga je chung ya shik.
And so, and now we have this pride of inferiority, which is basically one is comparing oneself with somebody who really is truly extraordinary. Yeah. So you're doing this comparison, but you think, you know, I'm really not that far from, you know, from being like them. I'm just like a little, you know, I just have a few things missing. I'm just a little bit off, but really I'm pretty much there when you're actually the object with which, you know, the person with who you're comparing yourself is really, you know, really, really far out. And you have this belief that you're just a little bit, just one step behind. That's it.
Tamade tandade and dumbate lobbying a jersey. Tan lobbying a jersey the chik penadino penzonro sobala sobapa la yodense. Tonda garsen a penachik socho and water, Yana pan zenico and water, Pasho yoden tuni mayin kish, penny yoden mayin bachile, yoden tani. And chik chawa lokba chile, she would up a chick so tachi chik pawu se chik tachi loka chumbuta tindi chikim korwa. Tindi yoden mayin bala yoden de lomne, telia so get. And chik chawa chunchu lola ya, shigalaya, so pe. Pitabo shuji yosa sam ngartia tindi chungres ya.
Tisan lega ti chawa tende chingemba chigla ani susu tende che atela kala gore ngage kia penam so
penna dachi tindi yungkro da machu arda ro tindi senge segdo arda se ando tindi rile ya ta tindi do se an da nga na shi yoji mare san san yungura ngaje chen tindi chawa ngemba yena ko leka chawa de pe chawa dikya shire yode mayen ke shile susu gati yode yin sam ni tani lobbying arjerse chawa lokba shile ya susu gati shiwi na shan ni ngaje chunga shito ote lobbying arjerse.
And so the last one is erroneous pride. And so erroneous pride here is referring to engaging in negative actions such as killing, lying, or, you know, the whole sort of, you know, the whole series of negative actions, and actually seeing and perceiving a quality in them and taking sort of excessive pride in engaging in those qualities. So you could, a kind of good example of this is like a hunter, you know, although they're actually killing, they think, you know, I am really like, you know, the best hunter, and there's really kind of nobody could, you know, kill the way I do. There's this kind of idea. So this is a sort of erroneous pride, because they have this pride which has been sort of, which is based upon a very harmful action from the offset.
Dine ma ta tiwaji le te kante yung kore sung ta di gang le yang so ne ngombi nga jer se sho moji ngombi nga jer se te ta tanda thama de lobi nga jer se tini kara chaba yor se lombi nga jer se am ngombi nga jer se te lobi nga je ni te tanda de ngombi nga jer se te gang le so le yoden de ji china yode je yo kan shi le ya yode ma je yoden de so je la tanda ma le ngoni 다 여den이 말에 이어서 섬 맞게 좀 하시고라 어때 가르잖아 봐쇼 맞게 제서게 소소게 진짜 어때 아니 소소견라 마음발이야 소소 쉬운 거 전에는 연합 반저게 전에는 그때 정말 연조식이야 에 마저 행원이 내도 좀 써서 말때 이어서 섬 맞게 좀 어때 잡을때 샴바데는 여den 단다디 로빙 아제스 해야 되기 공시야 나시레 로빙 아제스 해야 돼 아니 연된 매바 찍달라요. 배 연된 자원이 많이 계시네요. 연된 단에 저기 쇼지 나샤세 소소이jel이야. 다지 기롱화세는다 토야 면조식 봐쇼 지금 연된 많이 계시래. 연된에 있습니다. 이제 그런 면조식이래요. 군이 잡아도 되는지 치.
And I would just like to take a little bit of time to make the difference between the pride of conceit and the erroneous pride, to make the difference between these two very clear. And so this one, the pride of conceit here, is referring to this belief of having a certain quality, but actually you haven't acquired this quality yet. So even before having this quality, you have this belief that you have this, you have it, and therefore you're arrogant about it. So you're arrogant about something that you don't have yet. So that's really the pride of conceit. Yeah. And then this last one here, which is the erroneous pride, is really referring to this idea of believing in some kind of quality, of some kind of quality, but actually there is no real basis for quality in that action, for example. Or it would be, like I said, this is the idea with the hunter or killing. There is no actual virtuous action, or there is no quality in that action, but there is this belief. There is this belief that there is a quality, and there is this, this arrogance which is derived from this mistaken and this sort of baseless idea that a non-virtuous action is a virtuous one.
So korang nga jese ate condition ba ta nga je nam dang de mo bo shin de shi ta ani chung yo re ta tene ta je dang ni nga jese ti ni je dang ro sin da tin de mo bo ju chung wa te la te ni da su su le ya ani chi kang tar don dang ro nga je ga kar chung yo re sing de dan da ta ka lo re su su ga ne dang de ani chi 미지 배나 미지 기초식이 다 지소소지 고리기식 나는데 갑리나 아니 소소가 내당데 마 아니 지커스스에 고리되나 잔념듯이 따마더니 소소지 지 샴발에 싸워치야니 소소데 샴발에 문자와시 소소데 딘디지 랑싱을 내용도 나르제 식침물레오네 대왕게 지까지 시간잖아요 지 셰당데 문자와시 셰 아니 지금 내가 체크한다나 아니 지금 만다와시 미치는 아니 내가 지구나요 내가 꾸당데 소소지 내가 지금 미치는 내가 지로 치랍거나 나제 직중부신 사대 대 원에 전에 콜로 로바지 고 요르다 로바데 고에 제라 마트 소소지레 나제데 요르와 아니 소소 미치는 레바 잡거나 레바 잡당데 지 당원에 전에 소소를 아니 로바지 가르고에 나갈때 로바 제로 치지니 베게 고에 열대나 결랑 마르제드 식치다데 로바 고야 강시라양 대양 직 다다실라 마토야 단데 벤천도 잖아 벤천도 근데 이거도 직 소소 내당도 마빠 마토 당아제 식침을 내단 드니야 마제티 원게 소소 뽐도데 식치르도 아주 남지 뽐도세죠 아니 직가로다 아니 미지 지금 내들이 질랍산다 메딩아 찰레 제리에 섭삼도다 아람상 뭐사 초초듯이 세고 칼로르다 지 강대 소소 담보 싸워 친구지 따사리 소소 마시우지 인텐데레 당 마 소소 빠마도 온디 람사 미송알에 지라용 거래 사삼로 체네 베나 디강레야 벤 소소로 로바지 고게나 다 로바지 샴바지 로바 제로치에서 라마토야데 가르쳐 타고 말선 당아디 지랍잖아 샴바디 코데치 무중케지 인서를 라온 제야데 양네 코데치 교보지 있어래 삼삼 디니지 라면 삼삼 소소 북리야 삼로 디니지 코네 테 가르잖아 상만 가제 공부 중도
No. J'ai alguém que wangi soso de ki roba tande chikogi na yami shemba tande shutu gune bakansina once Yes. And so in relation to arrogance, and we consider sort of being an arrogant person and how we interact with our environment, how we interact with our society, arrogance basically takes away any sense of sort of equal ground which exists between ourselves and that environment and that society. There's this belief that I am very special. I am something, really unique in that sense. And so this sort of arrogant attitude will affect the way we interact, the way we speak, the way we carry out any kind of task that we need to do. And it will also sort of prevent any kind of capacity that if we are in a need of help, we're unable to actually put ourselves down on a lower ground and in a sense put ourselves in a vulnerable situation and ask for help, because we have this sort of we feel embarrassed and we feel like that other people will criticize us or will, judge us because we've put ourselves down in a sense to be able to ask for help. And so arrogance is really sort of freezes us in a sense, because we put ourselves on such a high level that we're not able to bring ourselves down and ask for help in these various manners because of embarrassment and so forth.
Yeah. 다 되네 챵온데 다 ngaje세티 님보 칸치 공고레스 님 ngaje드 메와 차야래야 다직 탕로 야셰치 카레zon데 다 남베 에네 타tuk나라 다나디 강라 주 데요 감지라베세시 감지라에 공고레 송요레 다 감지라베세 돈다 카레zon데 테요 세타티 칸데요레zon데 랑기 미시비 시진난다 타이바지 요바 사울라 당토고레스 돈다 디치그리다 소소가 ngaje chesa de mancha ngaso ngaje kan chungres yana soso ge chi shicha yoden ro de ji yongde de la mu ne ta nga shi wi jin na sha jing gro ta gar zo soso ge donda de kan sena soso le yoden chi yona soso ge yoden de ani yoden shamba de dursho se worta donda de terta turna rangi mishi be shi chin nan ran thai ba yotsar jongde shamba chang di ba shi ga nong 다시자 망보여 비비 요데 망보시요는 소소를 요데 같이 신두시야 신고로 어때 둘소나 신이 소소 아니 가제도 마차 그래스 어때
And in relation to antidotes as to how to undo and to remove attitudes of arrogance, what is sort of presented in the literature is in relation to contemplating and meditating upon the different divisions of the world. And so what does this actually mean? This is referring to thinking about and identifying all of the different sort of unknowns to us, everything which is unknown to us, and realizing that there are an extensive, a huge amount of things that we are unaware of, that we don't know, or that we do not have in a sense. So, and basically because when we have arrogance, we are sort of obsessing over our own qualities. But if we're able to kind of step back and consider the wider picture and become aware of everything which we do not, all of the qualities that we do not have, we see that this inflated attitude has no basis in this sense. So this is why the contemplations on the vision and the division, of the world are beneficial in order to reduce arrogance.
냐 tindindo chi korang shicha yode gani duriya chikche yana ane kansa shamba rangle labi kansa chapa namse ta chik yoden gi chani be shamba yang chi kashi ta chik nyamlen gani shana nyamlen ga toba tini tombo top sange tindi yoden shu yonjo te maying be yang chi tanda chi gitsar no tindi gani dundana ranye le lapa be yode mambo yosa be changni diba shi yodea mo tizo yang sablo 당도나 당에다 마치 연결되다 가야지 레메도 왔었음 수수가 니 가르쳐다 당보 소소 시원이나 샤데야데 마테 차야래 카르펜도 샴바니한테 들고 그래스 두야데 이렇게 전에 시진한다 마보 쇼시어래 저런 거 시야데 때즈마도 시원 자샤시 마선나 자샤 중니시 아니 대나신 게 아니 여된 샴바 연결 강사 베티 여대 베트니 망보 쉬우시래 뜻소가 요된라 빼니 소소가 요된데다 빼 강야레메도 세시 그러와 어때 두리야 tindigani 치송거래.
And so another way to apply the antidote to arrogance is in relation to comparing yourself with individuals who, for example, in relation to spiritual practice, might have some type of realizations, or people who have various sort of creative skills. And so by comparing yourself with somebody who is more sort of wealthy in these qualities, you start to understand that although initially you thought that you were such a big deal because you were so good at this, or you had this, or whatever, you had this sort of inflated attitude, you really realize that you're not a big deal comparatively to this other person who has these extensive realizations, who have these extensive skills. So although at first, by thinking first of the broader picture of the unknown, you realize that you have 1 or 2% of things that you actually do know, or the qualities that you do actually have. And then in the second stage, when you start to compare yourself with other people who have these skills, you realize that there are so many people who have so many more sort of skills and qualities than you. And so this really helps sort of deflate this sense of arrogance.
Yeah, that do not countries sungo yoresena tachi 아니 초용이 따도고래서 데려다 초양보 초용이로 아니 따당대 고양보시 강이 따당 진가 저 요모그리 망쳐가대 다 집에는 아전로 집에나요 맞아 다 총도 오시는데 베네베트 직 로자 춘주지 강이 직 땅으로 다직 시부지 나셔야다 디원게 다직 셈바이나 맞게 뭐뭐 차려야 딘디기 전에 다 초상바지는 따도나 초 지금 가서 뭐 zertsen 마선 zertse choksen mambo지네 아니 삼로 당도는 로자 체른도 로자 같이 자체른도나 소소 삼로기 전에 고양아른도야 강에 그리나 람사 강에 태초초 마임바 강에 mambo지 랑싱가 마세도야 소소기 지 다초지 강니 뭐 딘디 다 돈단데 랍자데 데레다 아니 감지라에 공고 그래서 근데 난다 mam보 쇼시가 봐 초mam보니 따토고 그래서 돈다 데레다
Mm. And to kind of sum this idea up of this antidote of meditating on the different divisions of the universe, it's basically pointing at developing numerous perspectives and taking the time to take a step back, because when we are under the control of disturbing emotions, what happens is that our mind becomes very narrow, becomes very tight in a sense, and we're unable to see the situation apart from a single sort of standpoint. And this sort of tight and this sort of blocked, confined state of mind will bring about a lack of well-being, will bring about a lack of happiness. You won't feel well. So on the other hand, if you're able to take a step back through this contemplation, you're able to open up your mind. This means that because you're taking a step back already, the way that you're contemplating on the situation is much more expansive. Yeah, you're considering different standpoints, and by having an open mind and considering different standpoints, this gives you the freedom and the space to basically be able to dispel a lot of the problems and difficulties which will come your way. And this capacity to dispel the problem in the first place is coming from this ability to change the way you're thinking about the situation, changing in the sense that you're thinking about numerous perspectives, numerous points of view in relation to a situation. And so this is really what it means. Meditating upon the different divisions of the universe is considering the different divisions, and on top of that, looking at them from numerous and an extensive sort of different points of view and perspectives.
So yang tat tindi tanda di nga so ngajer siya te chunga dukumare ngajer siya te chik chunga so so le ta kyun mombo shi chunga ta yuden che la ke che gre la onde yang ngajer siya te tang ma so namje popa se shwa popa che ku gre se tuni yang te samro ta da che ma ta na ta dini chi khare na so so be ka ni ngajer che na dukumare la onde 소소 같은 딕셔드 아니 즉강 참마가 타마데 소소 임바 즉강 민중케다 딘디에 다지 뽑아 코너 찬데 남경의 진전생의 즉 경통을의 로경체 토랭아 즉 가래의 익체시는 게 좀더 롱그레세 소소를 뽑아시고 그러 대양 매와 차 딘디 같이 싸우는 말에 스탠다 뽑아서 된 해버 고여를 된 알제스에 다 뽑아니가 코랑게 셈그 그게 따초고 아니 근론다 아니 버게 셈가 따초다 상마건 베드가 아니 자기요 마르스테요 마스테요 예 파르티시 인제 지시고다.
And so in relation to arrogance, it's important to be able to identify that is a source of a lot of faults, a lot of problems, a lot of obstacles in our life. And actually, I really want to put emphasis on this point that arrogance and self-confidence need to be clearly distinguished. Arrogance is really something which we want to try and get rid of, and on the other hand, self-confidence is not something that we want to get rid of. And it's not because we're getting rid of our arrogance that we think that we're the worst of all, that we are the lowest of all, that we're unworthy, or any of that. It's very valuable actually to think and to be self-confident and to think that you're capable. For example, if you want to pass an exam or you want to accomplish a task, you need to have that feeling of being capable and that confidence in your capacity to accomplish the task. So really, arrogance and self-confidence, they are very different. And they are very different not only in the way that they think about the situation, but they are very different in their motivation, in what they're trying to achieve. And I think this distinction is very, very important and valuable to make.
Yeah. Namjinga to Boba Siate, Boba Siatia, Jebi Kabla, Candidates on the Penachi, Yoden, Jana, Jana Shigres, Junkra, T. Jensen, Jana Shigres, Jimse Koran, Jew, and Kolon Koran, Jensen Yata Bajila Teni, Jense Karatangare Chikta, Ani Chutang, Ani Tachi Tatab the Dig, Ani Lobjon Inquena, Korosati Gani Jensen Tangi or Te Mayan beyond Tsering da Tindi Gani, Nanta Masu, Yaji Tangayo, Jinse Mabu Shingura, and a Susumi, Nalojon, Yajindre, Jimse. Jinse does a Tesola Tene, Popa Yet Kior, Popa Giale, Ko Jinse Yanta Bash. Tanda Nadia Garixiati, Nadia Garite, Jinse Yanta Ba Mene, Jinse Yanta Pati, Win Tanda Karimba Manton, Win is at the college, Takisha Nashin, the Mantone, Jitan Jibu and Namsha Tata, the Karkarim, but the Mantone. So that indicate the parictria low, tachote, the lobastani. Ani in a jerity, but they only Jukoran Ganian, Montosh, Chagres Kuni.
And so, in relation to self-confidence, it is not only valuable, but the process as to how it arises is very different. And so first we can think of, if we think, if I study this, then I will become learned, I will have acquired that particular skill. So this process of studying, bringing about, being learned or being, knowledgeable is a very reasonable sort of, is a very logic and a very sort of valid, reflections to have. And whether we are applying this to the Dharma, whether we're applying this to philosophy, whether we're applying it to science, even science will argue that there are many reasons in which, or many ways that one can improve. Yeah, we have this capacity to improve various skills. So here, self-confidence is important to understand that the cause for it is very much a valid cause. There's a very much a valid reason. It's not an unreasonable or unrealistic sort of idea which is put forward, as the basis of self-confidence. On the other hand, when we're reflecting upon arrogance, arrogance is a complete sort of you're completely off beam as regards reality. You're not at all in accord to what is truly in front of you, in a sense. You're not able to see the mode of existence of what actually is. And it means that you're blind, in a sense, to cause and effect. And so there's this blindness, and therefore this means that you have a mistaken sort of perspective, a mistaken view on the situation. So the cause for arrogance and the cause of self-confidence are very, very different.
Yeah. Does
anybody have any questions?
Kiba Ziaden, Kibe Yoden, the Kiba Ziati, Koran Yoden, Mambu Shush, Kibe Yoda Pame Bashiona, Ani Susu, Nadia Mebatam the Maze, Ani Chi Shambas and Yode, Chinjumato, Mena, and Teliang, Tapsi Chegres, Mani Begia, touching Nadia Ganetang, Rotindi Major Kibashina, Ani Yode Chungina, Pets Liang Tapsi Chegre, Tindi Chena, Carpento Eres, and the theatre, Ani. There's a gent that get your passion, the Tindi, Chirambachin, and the Chunjus in a young, and the Asaki Saki Tinichina, near the Asoso Chikta, and the Chik Tamalaya Chik, Shija Tamchets, and a counter that Tindi is so, and a Shianga, and a Jetoya, Tindi, and near the Tindi compound, Toto Resident, Tindi, Abjashin and Gadoa, near the Tanji, that Sanjay and was at Tindi. Yarna to te my beta counter so Yenden de any Yajito race actually.
And so there is this quote here, which I want to finish off with, which is from the Sakya, and it's called the Sakya Geshe. And so in this text, in this verse, it says that although scholars or wise ones have an innumerable amount of qualities, if they see, even if they see a small quality, small quality, they will do their best to try and acquire it. And so this means that by proceeding in such a way that quickly such a being will rapidly eventually they will rapidly know everything. Eventually they will know everything. You can think of knowing everything here either as attaining omniscience, so becoming enlightened, becoming Buddha, or you can think of it just as simply as knowing all, in the sense of knowing all phenomena.
Yeah, then the deal Karlapchan go resena, Tanda. Susu ni yoden, Susu yoden Katzich Yona yang Tanda Shambasani yoden lay or is a chick chirwa, Shambasani Tanda yoden, Tarchimba Chayo Mare is the only Tati, Tonda Karis on the Nan Gonle Chusha saying, Arjekari do what in the Yosati, Ane Shambasani, Chick Giant, Tindichel, and Susu Pondondo. And it's the Jambas and the Shian Chilengona, Monishana Soso, Mashia Yonayang, Tinang Musi Carsonata, Masu Miller Ranchi Karim Wilson, Sosa Namji Washiba, Yana Chikpaina, Dukoria, Troboina, Tomo Karina, Tinding Washiba, Nalaya, Tile Kacha Chitragona, Tile Chikarzara, Ne Karzartachi, Namji Soso, Shion the Yode Yolamni, Soso with a chick. Shu ani ngom sarwa te ngom sa jile ta shamana kacha chitakan to gona tia de ngo sawo do da ti ma thuni kanda soso kange mombo shi tinang le ta soso pomdo ro chin te pomdo se so kha chung re song de gang le nga je ke chung tinde ya ya thu do khu jidan ji bu pa ani chig chig le tinde ten de wa de nga so ta ta shi ha ko to do ta dile namji soso ngom shi ba shi le kacha to gona chig chana pa chung ngom shi ba de Susuli Yoden Gichani Karagani na Jewish in secret, the Kolikaja Tiala Shitan Zendo Mayanch, Karzana Ko Suhakoyo Mara, no de on the Karzana, Teleang Tiala Tab de Wondowish. That is a Karz, Sama Narzu, Litachik Gavlo de Valea, Suso Sonchip Chiash, Lake Door, Suso Sonchip. What Tindigon Gichon de Ash, and the Ma Lobjang money the Tindijin said.
And so this verse here that I've just quoted from this Sakya Rishi, I think the advice for us to take from it is to understand that there is this process sort of acquiring qualities, and our process of acquiring qualities is not complete. And the difficulty with arrogance is that although we might be in the company of others with a state of mind of arrogance, we are not in any sort of disposition to learn and to grow in any type of sense. And it might also mean that even though we have friends and we're surrounded by various people who have these different knowledges, we're unable to ask, we feel stuck and we feel like, our mouth completely sealed. We're not able to sort of open up and ask for those different help and for the knowledge that we don't have, and this turns us up into this kind of tough sort of ball almost, and we're unable to sort of understand our dependence on others and how this dependence on others will help us grow in that sense. And so therefore we end up sort of hiding and sort of sheltering ourselves because we don't want to let the other people know that we don't know. We have this fear of being presented in this embarrassing way of not knowing, but this keeps us more sort of locked into this state of mind of not knowing. And also this locked in state of mind is really this arrogance of not being able to put yourself down, open yourself up, and in order to be able to learn something from others.
So that Hamadan Tering so that giant in Nale, so thing as with the Jersey Kolia, Janri. Tati Jan de Masology Lapchandos in the Tit on down to what they take counter social, you then country Shigana, you then the Tara, you then but another to go reta, you then changes your body, Jinsa zone, the Rani she was in some good indeed conversations on the Kumarita's entry. Tonda chick did it. Tine on social, you then, and you are at some Mayimba. Ta yodengi rikdal pe taiba jumni te tsama la dur togu gres ranya ga nepab ta mishamba ga nepab inaya dur go gres tene che tona suso ga ni loja chirin do gre ani karsor ta chi shicha yoden na kombe de do gres ta kantar tonda garasana I suso ga ani yoden ro ta shicha yoden ri gar jaya la ya go de jama sha se wata tonda go jama des go jam de ko ani Pena Tsungkang Rishina, Tsung Jagale, Tsungkang Go Chegarmota, Tsungkang Go Ani Ma Jap, Ne Tsung Jagasena, Yonga Koromitoa, Ani Teda Washi, Tanda Kanta Nazanga Jazia, Soma Yodengi, rugi wa tsama kasha gre go ja gre se or ta donda de ta ngo de lapcha de ichik tri dinang donda do de ni chik lengo isare tes.
And so just to sum up the main sort of advice here in this study that we've done of the mental fact of arrogance is the first point is really to think about to identify the different qualities that we have. It's fine, but it's the problem comes about from this thinking that one is extraordinary, one is sort of superior or better, and kind of this looking down upon others, and this motivation is inadequate. This is an incorrect sort of attitude to carry out. Second, the point is to reflect upon one's qualities, but also be aware of the limitless sort of qualities and objective knowledge which exist, and so therefore that there are there's so much more to learn in that sense. So to not lock yourself into this belief that you have these qualities and this knowledge and that's enough. In a sense, you need to be able to open your mind up and to keep an open mind in relation to all of these different qualities to learn and qualities to acquire, in a sense. And if you're able to remain with an open mind, it means that you'll you will allow knowledge and wisdom to grow within you in that sense. And so the point is that you don't shut the door of learning. You don't sort of shut yourself off from learning. Similarly, if you want business, then you need to open up shop. You can't expect any business if there's no opening up of shop. So it's very important that we don't shut ourselves off from learning in that sense. And so this, I think, was the main kind of point and advice, which is to take out from these explanations.
Also, ane tuche nanda bache nasu tisu science. Ane jima sa purbula wala suza purbula.
Jeta kasang ati kare. Ani la nyamdo ke jishene ani ta kirang tutsu yunani nga ta chindati nanglo la tutsu sa dawa tang sa purbu ganga tutsu tomba ye chisanga la jigidu.
Olas. Dene ma di dendra nyile ya ane za purbula nga dendra samba de bache chikchina nga lopcho chitokit. Dendra chikrim hago masu. Dene ma dendra nyile nga za dawa ta purba nyigala.
Okay, so the next class will be on Thursday, and then the following week as well, and then we will see how we will move on from now. But yeah, next class on Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Genla. Take care.
And Jason do that.
Hi, Teddy. Hi, Perry. See you Thursday.
Thank you.